Some people will call your boundary disrespectful because your lack of boundaries was convenient for them. This is the part nobody prepares you for. When you finally stop answering every call, fixing every crisis, absorbing every attitude, lending every dollar you have, explaining yourself 10 times, or making yourself available whenever somebody wants access to you, they may not celebrate your growth. They may accuse you of changing. And sometimes they are right. You did change, but change is not automatically betrayal or something. Sometimes growth looks offensive to people who benefited from the version of you that had no limits. They were accustomed to your immediate yes, your unlimited availability, your constant rescuing, your willingness to absorb discomfort so nobody else had to experience any. Then one day you say, I cannot do that. And suddenly you are the most selfish person in the world. But notice something, your boundary did not create the problem, it revealed the expectation that was already there. The expectation that loving them meant always being accessible to them. There is a psychological difference between connection and entitlement. Connection appreciates access, entitlement expects it. Connection can hear no. Entitlement interprets no as disrespect. Connection recognizes that you are another human being. Entitlement slowly begins treating you like a resource. This is why you have to become careful when evaluating somebody's reaction to your boundary. Their disappointment does not automatically mean they are manipulative. People are allowed to feel disappointed, but there is a difference between disappointment and punishment. A healthy person can say, I do not like this boundary, but I respect your right to have it. An unhealthy response sounds more like guilt, sounds like threats, sounds like insults and withdrawal of affection and retaliation, or repeatedly attempting to wear you down until your no becomes yes. The question is not whether your boundary makes somebody uncomfortable. The question is what they believe their discomfort gives them permission to do to you. Do not measure the health of your boundary by how happy everybody is about it. Sometimes the clearest evidence that a boundary was necessary is how angry somebody becomes when they realize the old level of access is gone. Because some people are not mourning the relationship, they are mourning the privileges they had inside it. You can set the right boundary and still receive the wrong reaction. That matters because many people abandon reasonable boundaries the moment somebody becomes upset. You say no, they become distant. Now you start questioning yourself. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should call. Maybe I should explain it differently. Maybe I am being selfish. And before long, you have negotiated yourself right back into the situation that made the boundary necessary. Your brain naturally wants relief from relational tension. When someone you care about becomes upset with you, discomfort can activate an urge to repair the connection immediately. The urge is not always bad. Healthy relationships require repair, but sometimes you are not repairing anything. You are removing your boundary because you cannot tolerate another person being disappointed with you. Those are two different things. Emotional maturity includes the ability to ask, did I do something wrong? Or am I simply experiencing the discomfort of doing something differently? You need enough self awareness to tell those apart because sometimes you should apologize. Sometimes your delivery was disrespectful. Sometimes what you called a boundary was actually punishment. Sometimes you were wrong. We need enough humility to admit that too. But sometimes you communicated respectfully. Your limit was reasonable, and the other person simply did not like hearing no. That is where discernment matters. Don't only ask, are they upset? Ask, what exactly did I do? Was I clear? Was I respectful? Was my response proportionate? Am I protecting something important or am I trying to hurt them back? If your boundary passes those questions, somebody else's anger does not automatically become evidence against it. You cannot use another person's emotional reaction as the side measurement of whether your decision was healthy or not. Because if you do, the most emotional reactive person in every relationship will eventually become the person who controls it. You are allowed to reconsider a boundary. You are allowed to adjust it. You are allowed to admit when you handle something poorly. But do not confuse being teachable with being easily pressured. Growth requires enough humility to correct yourself and enough courage not to abandon yourself every time somebody disagrees. People reveal a lot about the relationship with you when they stop getting what they want from you. Everybody can look respectful while you are agreeing. Everybody can appear understanding while you are available. Everybody can call you amazing while you are making their life easier. Sometimes the real information arrives after the first no. Watch what happens next. Do they ask questions? Do they try to understand? Can they disagree without insulting you? Can they remain connected without punishing you? Or does your no immediately become a courtroom where you are forced to defend your character? You have changed on me. You think you are better than everybody after everything I've done for you. If you really love me, see, those statements are powerful because they move the conversation away from the actual boundary and toward your identity. Now you are no longer discussing whether you can do something. You are defending whether you are a good person. This is how guilt can become leverage. Pay attention anytime somebody makes compliance the proof of love. Love should influence what we are willing to sacrifice for one another. Healthy relationships absolutely require sacrifice, but sacrifice is different from coercion. Sacrifice is freely chosen. Coercion makes affection, approval, and peace or belonging conditional upon your compliance. There is a reason Scripture tells us that love is patient and kind. Healthy love does not need to emotionally corner you into proving it exists. Love can make requests. Love can express disappointments. Love can even say, this boundary does not work for me. But love should not need to dismantle your dignity to get its way. Sometimes the most revealing moments in a relationship is not the moment when you say, I love you. It is the moment when you say no. Because people who love you should still be able to recognize your humanity when your answer does not benefit them. There comes a point where explaining yourself stops being communication and starts becoming an audition for permission. You already explained why something hurts. You explain what you needed. You explain what happens if the pattern continues. Then they ask again. So you explain differently. Then again. Now you are rewriting the same truth 10 different ways, hoping one version will finally make them respect it. Sometimes the issue is not that they don't understand. Sometimes they understand perfectly. They simply disagree with your right to make the decision. This is an important distinction. Healthy communication requires clarification, right? Misunderstandings happen. People deserve reasonable opportunities to understand one another, but endless explanations can become dangerous when you believe you must make somebody agree with your boundary before you are allowed to keep it. You do not. Agreement and respect are not the same thing. Somebody can disagree with your limit and still respect it. You can disagree with theirs and still honor it. That is maturity. When you find yourself repeatedly explaining the same boundary, ask yourself, am I providing clarity or am I trying to convince them that I deserve permission to protect myself? Sometimes one clear explanation is enough. Sometimes another conversation is appropriate, but eventually behavior becomes the conversation. If you tell somebody repeatedly that yelling ends the conversation and they continue yelling, you no longer have an information problem. You have a behavior pattern. If you repeatedly explain that private information should not be shared and they continue sharing it, they do not need another speech. They need different access. Your boundary does not become more legitimate because you found the perfect words. Sometimes the healthiest sentence is simply, I understand that you disagree. My decision remains the same. You do not need to win the argument to protect the boundary. Sometimes nobody is wrong. The relationship simply cannot survive the boundaries both people genuinely needed. That can be painful to accept because we are often taught that if two people love each other enough, they should be able to make anything work. But love does not erase incompatibility. Imagine one person needs constant communication throughout the day to feel connected. The other values significant independence and rarely wants to communicate while working. Neither need automatically makes someone unhealthy, but both people now have to ask whether a sustainable middle ground exists. One person may desire an open phone policy. The other may strongly value personal privacy. One person may want family heavily involved in the relationship. The other may need strong separation between the relationship and extended family. Boundaries do not only protect relationships, they reveal whether two people can realistically build one together. This is why boundaries should appear before resentment whenever possible. It is better to discover incompatibility through honest conversation than through years of slowly becoming angry at each other. Do not automatically turn incompatibility into villainy. Some relationships end because somebody behaved terribly. Others end because two good people require different things to remain healthy. And trying to force compatibility can eventually make both people unhealthy. Sometimes you have to stop asking, how do I make them accept what I need? And begin asking, can what I need and what they need realistically coexist? That question requires courage because sometimes the answer is no, but no is still information. Not every person you love is a person you can build with. Sometimes boundaries do not destroy relationships. They simply tell the truth about whether the relationship had enough room for both people to exist honestly. Do not become so obsessed with protecting yourself that nobody can reach you. This is the other side of this conversation because after being hurt, boundaries can quietly turn into armor. You tell yourself you are protecting your peace, but nobody is allowed close enough to challenge you. Nobody can question you. Nobody can disappoint you. Nobody gets another chance. Every mistake becomes grounds for removal. That is not necessarily emotional health. Sometimes that is fear becoming highly organized. A boundary should protect connection where connection is possible. A wall prevents connection entirely. Healthy relationships need flexibility, grace, conversation, forgiveness, negotiation, and repair. You are dealing with another imperfect human being. They will misunderstand you. They will occasionally disappoint you. You will disappoint them too. If your definition of safety requires another person never making you uncomfortable, you are not asking for emotional safety. You may be asking for emotional control, and nobody can promise you a relationship without discomfort. Healthy love does not remove every painful feeling, it gives painful feelings somewhere safe to be discussed. This is where self-accountability becomes critical. Do not learn the language of boundaries and use it to avoid correction. Do not call every disagreement disrespect. Do not call every difficult conversation toxic. Do not call every expectation controlling. And do not use healing language to create a relationship where everybody has to accommodate you while you never accommodate anybody. Healthy boundaries work both directions. You are allowed to have limits, and so are they. You are allowed to say no, and so are they. You deserve respect, and so do they. God did not call us to relationships where we disappear, but He also did not call us to relationships where self-protection becomes selfishness. Healthy love requires wisdom, enough wisdom to know when to open the door, enough wisdom to know when to close it, and enough humility to ask whether the person standing at the door is actually the problem or whether fear has convinced you that nobody should ever be allowed inside. Because boundaries are not supposed to make love impossible. They are supposed to make healthy love sustainable. J fam, I'm so grateful for your souls, your hearts, and your minds. And like I always say, keep learning, keep growing, and keep becoming the person God is calling you to be. I'll see you in the next lesson.